Hi, I'm Kristen and this is Scrap Fabric Love, and today I am super excited to tell you all about the first ever Scrap Club group quilt, the Window Seats Quilt. So this has been in the works since February when I started Scrap Club, and all of these blocks were sent in from Scrap Club members from all over the world. So this is our collective quilt that we made together. So today I'm going to tell you kind of how we started, what the idea was, how we got to this point. This is the quilt top, not quilted yet. And then I'll tell you the plans for what's going to happen with the Window Seats Quilt after. So it all started in February when I started Scrap Club. So this is my no judgment, no rules quilt group. Scrap Club lives inside Patreon, and we meet on Zoom and we have group quilts. So this was the Window Seats group quilt. And the whole idea that these ovals are everybody's favorite sewing technique, favorite color. It's just a window seat view into their sewing room. Not that you would obviously fly an airplane that close to someone's house, but you know what I mean. It was a concept, it was an idea. So I asked them to do me roughly a 6.5 inch tall kind of oval. So everyone had the option of using this template, but they didn't have to. I gave them the measurement that the oval should be about 6.5 inches on an 8.5 inch block, but honestly, I wasn't bothered whether they ended up that way or not. I asked for the black to be either kind of plain or tone on tone black so that we had this kind of black background with the colors popping out. I asked for the ovals to be mostly all one color, but they could choose whatever color they wanted, and they could choose whatever technique they wanted. And there was multiple options for how to get the oval on the black square. So you could either raw edge applique like this one. You could reverse applique like this one. This one's needle turn applique. Or folk could also just send me a square and an oval and I could put it on for them. So I did do that for a few folk. So the whole idea was to give folk freedom and choices to express themselves so we could get to know each other because we're a new group, and also just to have fun with not knowing what colors were going to come in. So with the black background and with the ovals being a concentrated area of color, we were going to get these pops of color, but we didn't know how many everybody was going to send in. So that was the kind of fun of the randomness and how it was all going to go together. And I didn't actually have a layout for this quilt when I set the task. I showed the group a number of ways it could look, but there was no way of knowing how it was going to come together until I saw the blocks coming in. So I've taken close-ups of everybody's blocks as they came in, and I will show you those. But basically, some people did little scenes, look like a beach or a mountain, almost like you're actually looking at a place. Some people did their favorite technique or used embellishments. So much creativity, so much variety, and that is what we wanted in the Window Seats group quilt. So it was all about just having everyone show who they are as a quilter. Don't worry about whether the oval is perfect size. Don't even worry about if the block is the perfect size, because I'm probably not even going to measure it when it arrives anyway. So I really only gave folk the block size as a kind of ballpark because people don't like having no instructions. But I really wouldn't have minded if someone sent me something in way bigger, way smaller. I would have made it work in the quilt. So the key thing is that this quilt couldn't exist the way it is without every single person who contributed. So it's not just my quilt and it's not any one person's quilt. And those are the kind of group projects that I was excited to be part of when I joined some quilt groups local to me. Didn't quite work out that way for me. It felt a little bit too rigid. And not a quilt group, but I actually got involved in like a community quilt project where people were sending stuff in from, I think, even wider than Edinburgh, lots of places. And mine got called out on Instagram as kind of like an example of what you weren't supposed to do, which sort of slightly put me off. So my ethos with my group quilts is your blocks going in. It doesn't matter. Like if they've sent me something in and this was a square or a triangle, it still would be in the quilt because, you know, maybe I didn't explain it, or maybe they're just trying to throw me a curveball and that's who they are in our group, and that's fine. So that was how I approached this quilt. Everyone's block was going to fit and everyone's block was gorgeous. And honestly, there weren't any that I wouldn't have wanted to include. So it was an easy rule to follow for myself. It was so exciting to start to see the blocks coming in from all over the world and starting to see it take shape. We had one block lost in the post from Joanne, who actually lives closest to me of anyone, but she sent me this one as a replacement. And as I was seeing the blocks coming in and feeling more connected to everyone in the group, I could also see them forming connections with each other inside on the group, which was great. I even picked up one of the blocks in person at the Festival of Quilts from Amanda, which was cool. And it was just so nice to see both the quilt taking shape and the group really starting to gel as well at the same time. It was such a good kind of expression of what was happening. By the time I got to the deadline, I had received 51 fabulous blocks from all over the world. Here are the photos of the blocks as they came in. I also took videos as they all came in, and those are on my Instagram if you want to see the kind of unpackaging of each block. But this is the close-up I took as they came in, so I could keep them labeled to each person so I knew who made what. So we've got a record. And anything, if you see any wrinkles in these blocks, it's because I was just so eager to take the picture and make sure I had this catalog of the blocks. So obviously those wrinkles will be ironed out and pressed in the quilt itself. But also just a testament to how far some of these blocks came from. And it was just so lovely to see them all coming in. The reason that I set this block the way I did was so that people could use it as a little mini project rather than following a set pattern for just the same block that everyone's going to make over and over again. They could put some of their own thoughts and ideas in it. They could spend, maybe longer than just a couple hours on it if they wanted to. They could make it their own little personal work of art. And we can just see a little bit of them in this. And I just love the variety of the approaches to it. So creative, so many creative and different quilters in this group. And I'm so inspired every day when I see the projects that they're working on themselves in their own sewing rooms when they post them in the kind of chat groups and things. As you can see, there was no wrong way to make this block, and there was tons and tons of right ways. And it was just fabulous to see all the variety. A few people sent me in 2 blocks, either because they couldn't decide or they were just feeling generous. And I did have space to include those all in the quilt, so I went ahead and put everything in that I received. Once I'd received all the blocks, I did an update inside Scrap Club, and we talked about how many had come in from each color group. So this is the breakdown. Blue won the favorite color race with green and purple tied for second. And poor little red got only 1 block, but it was a fabulous block. Once I knew the distribution of color, I did these kind of mock-ups in EQ8. Obviously, this isn't what the blocks actually look like or even the shades, but it was just to show the variety of the colors and a few different ways that we could have laid them out. And the consensus at that meeting seemed to be that we were favoring the ones with a bit of negative space, and folk generally also seemed to be giving me free rein to just go at it and make it turn into whatever it turned into, which was nice. So I started by appliquing some of the blocks that still needed attached to their black backgrounds. Once that was done, I started grouping blocks by color. I wasn't strictly following any of the layouts we talked about, just the general idea. And although you probably would think that I started by squaring all the blocks up to a certain size, that's not kind of how I roll. So what I did was find the center so that the ovals were matched up with each other, and I could just trim any excess black if there was any, or add coping strips, that kind of thing. So I started doing that, just grouping things together, testing out layouts on the floor. And there was a bit of false starts. So you're going to see some things joined together that didn't end up next to each other in the quilt because I was trying different things, seeing what I liked the look of. It was a lot of just going on gut instinct. I knew I liked the look of grouping the blocks by color, but I also was finding that there were certain blocks that I felt like I wanted to go next to each other, even if they weren't the same color. So I was trying to figure out how to make that work. So there was a lot of shifting around, and I did end up unpicking some blocks from each other and moving them around a few times. Over the course of about a week, the layout began to take shape, and I finally found something I was happy with. And so at that point, it was a case of joining sections of the blocks and then adding bits of black fabric to make it fit with another section. So if you've seen any of my improv quilt videos, it was a similar idea. There was no set measuring here. It was like, how much black do I need to add to that row in order for it to fit with the one above it? And again, I was just kind of trying to focus on how the ovals were all sitting with each other. And there was some unpicking as well of that to try and make that fit too. So you might, for example, see on the left-hand side here, a grouping of 4 blue blocks. It doesn't quite follow the line above, so I ended up unpicking and moving those around so that they sat a bit more the way I wanted them to. So it was just a lot of playing, moving around. A little window seat jigsaw puzzle is basically what I was playing, and this part of it was really fun once I'd stopped dithering about where everything was going to go. And it was just a case of making it all fit, and that part is relatively easy once you know what you want to do. Because I was adding black fabric wherever I needed to make things fit. And sometimes I didn't have a great big piece of the black fabric necessarily. I'm just using what I have. I did end up with seam lines in strange places. Arguably, another way to go would have been to trim all the blocks to sort of the largest size and then also create black squares that would fill those spaces. But my brain doesn't always work in a logical way. Hope is that once I had the quilting lines, all you're going to be focusing on is the ovals anyways. The layout wasn't meant to be literal. It was about the colors and the designs and the shapes inside the ovals and how I saw those fitting together. But now that I see it like this, I can also, with one part of my brain, see various airplanes passing each other in the night, and the black is the sky. Or in another part of my brain, I can kind of see a bit of a map, and the black is the ocean. Don't take it too literally, but anyway, that's kind of how I was looking at it. So what is the plan now? So a couple of things. First, this is the quilt top, yes, but I think it needs more black. I think it needs a tiny bit more of a border, for want of a better word. It's probably just more negative space. So I'm going to add black all the way around. And that's also going to be my kind of insurance policy for squaring the quilt up once I've long-armed it, because then I can shimmy and have things to trim. Whereas if I quilted it with some of the ovals so that close to the edge, I might be at risk of like getting something a bit puckery at the edge, knowing myself. So I'm going to put more black fabric all the way around. So there's going to be more kind of breathing space around all those ovals. And then I'm going to quilt on the long arm. The idea is, so a lot of these, I didn't say earlier, but a lot of these are already quilted. So not everybody's, because again, it was an option that I gave folk. But a lot of them already have quilting lines in them. And I'm talking about just the ovals that people have already quilted. And there really aren't any that need quilting in that oval, okay? So the idea, what I'm thinking of is when I go and load the quilt on the long arm, I think the first thing I'm going to do is try and go round these ovals, but without touching the color. So I'll be using black thread, and I would just be going round and sort of securing them. And that's the idea. I'm going to see if that works or not. If that causes me too many issues, I might skip that part, but I think that would make things kind of pop, and it might make it easier for me to do the rest. And the rest of what I want to do really is straight lines in 2 directions. So I will flip it, but I will skip the ovals. So I'm not gonna, if I do a line, like it would go down and then I would move round and come down, or possibly even break thread, not sure yet, and then go down like that. And so it's gonna look like the ovals are just popping straight out of everything, and the black is just gonna really become the quilted background that you're not focusing on. So the idea is that everybody's little oval window seats are gonna be the focal point. Right, so once it's all quilted, obviously I have to bind it. I'm going to ask you a question about that in a second. And then secondly, it is going to go, we're going to submit it into the group category at the Scottish Quilting Show, which is in Glasgow next March. So that is the plan. So I've still got time. It's fine. But my question about the binding is that I know that the Scottish Quilting Show, they have black behind the quilts that they display there. So I have had a black quilt in that show before with black binding, and it looked fine. But I was wondering if a different choice of color for the binding might make it kind of sit away from the background a bit, or if that would just detract from the ovals. Because my thinking was that if I just want the ovals to stand out, then I should either face it or do a black binding that just disappears, and so that it's all just background. So let me know what you think of that. Give us your suggestions, whether you're in Scrap Club or not. We'd love to know your opinion on the binding and what we should do for that. And I do want to clarify, we are entering the Quilt in the Quilt Show in order to celebrate what we've made, get a nice photo of it hanging on the wall. It's not like we're expecting to win or hoping for that. It's more of a celebration moment that I can take nice photos and share with everyone who participated. And then afterwards, when the show's all done, I've got the quilt back, then we're gonna have a little raffle inside Scrap Club, and all the members of Scrap Club who made a block will be in with a chance to win the quilt. So somebody who made one of these blocks is gonna have this to keep. I hope you enjoyed hearing about how this all came together. I have had so much fun with this project, and I'm so looking forward to our next group quilt as well, which we've already started on. I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's called the Just Wing It quilt. So this is a Flying Geese Choose Your Own Adventure quilt. I've set the group a task of making quilt blocks sort of based on a flying goose, but that could be a foundation paper piece flying goose, traditionally pieced, improv. I did do a video about that a little while back, or even collage or applique. It could be a literal flying goose. And I've had a couple of blocks in so far for that. So 2 of these blocks are from Kate and Monica all the way in Australia. The collage flying goose is mine. And then the one with the blue crumb piecing, that crumb block that I used to make that flying goose block was an extra sent to me from Alicia with her Window Seats Quilt block. This is the mock-up that I showed the group. It's not going to look anything like this because of course I don't know what the blocks are coming in, but the brief this time is for the background to be gray or white, kind of like a cloudy sky, and then the colors are supposed to be anything that makes the person happy. So like these flying geese are just brightening up the sky. I've given the members some guideline measurements, some FPP patterns that they can use if they want to, some collage outlines they can use if they want to, but again, I'm going to use coping strips and other background fabric to make everything fit, and I hope it's just going to be a lovely mix of all sorts of different flying geese. So if a choose your own adventure flying goose quilt sounds fun, or you just want to be part of a group quilt experience like this, all the details about how to take part in that group quilt and how to be part of Scrap Club in general are in the link in the video descriptions. And it would be great to have some of you join us. So as I said, this quilt is going to the Scottish Quilting Show in March next year. So I will come back then with an update. You'll see it all quilted. You'll see it hanging in the show. It's going to be great. If this is your first time here, I generally make scrap quilts, sometimes with other folk. I don't follow a lot of quilting rules, and I would love to see you here again next time. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye.